this, I would like to welcome my next guest into the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center, Mark Santow in Ward 3, Mount Hope. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Running for the seat that was Kevin Jackson's, the recall vote, it's official. And now we just learned today that the dates have been set for the election.
Yes.
Primary in July.
Yeah, July 12th.
And the general in August.
Yes.
Now you declared, you've been, expressing your interest in the seat for a while.
Yeah, it's not so. I never thought I would ever run for political office before. I'm a history professor. That's what I do for a living, and I've been on the school board since 2015. So that's about as political as I ever thought I would get. I mean, I teach about American politics and urban studies, so I'm a political guy. But running for office always seemed like something other people did. But after Trump got elected last year, my kids are now just old enough to be able to follow politics, and they're Democrats in waiting, sort of the way I am, and both of them kind of came out of that election with a sense of cynicism, or I was worried that they would come out of that election with a sense of cynicism about electoral politics, in part also because of the difficulty that Kevin Jackson was in, and even before that Gordon Fox, who was our representative, was as well. So, I was driving my son to school the day after the election, and he was expressing a lot of fear about some of his friends who were born abroad or their parents were born abroad, about what's going to happen to them in this new Trump administration. And while I can't do much of anything about that, I know that what I can do is try and be just a good person with the best of intentions to try and run for office. And I think we need people to do things like that. And I know it sounds like sort of idealist or whatever, but when you're talking to your kids, it really kind of simplifies moral questions a bit. And that's kind of when I decided at that point that I wanted to do it.
So you've, seen in social media, you expressed very early on if Kevin was recalled, you were going to throw your hat in the ring.
Yeah.
What have your conversations been like with folks in Ward 3, again, about the recall of Kevin and sort of the future of the ward? It's kind of in this, you're hanging in the balance, so to speak.
Yeah.
And, what are you hearing from folks about, okay, what do we need next?
It's been a great learning experience. I guess that's probably the case for everyone who ever campaigns for office. You think you know your neighborhood until you actually are going out knocking on doors and meeting people. The recall, I know that the outcome of the recall vote was very lopsided, but it was, I think the way a lot of people in the neighborhood experienced it was as just kind of a sad, tragic circumstance. I've lived in the neighborhood for 14 years, and Jackson represented the ward going, at least a decade prior to that. He's done a lot of good things for the Mount Hope section of the community in particular. A lot of people had a lot of fondness for him. So, I got a sense that, there's an energy for something new. There's an energy for new representation, for more honesty and ethical government, for a council person who reaches all parts of the ward and tries to bring people together, because what the great thing about the ward is that it's a very diverse place. White and black certainly, but diverse in terms of class and how people live and where they go to school and all that. And so, I want to be the kind of city council person who tries as best I can to sort of bridge those kinds of gaps, because I think the gaps also lead to misunderstanding. And there are parts of the neighborhood, particularly in Mount Hope, that need resources. And then there's another part of the ward which actually has a lot of resources. So it would seem to me that the city council person needs to try and bridge that with some passion.
So, talking about the ward needs, let's look holistically citywide. Shake up with the council president.
Yes,
stepped down on Friday. Have you talked with other council members, about your candidacy?
A little bit. I tried with the recall itself. I tried to stay out of the recall campaign itself. I thought it would seem self-serving and would not be good for me or the recall. And so I kind of waited till that played out. I've spoken to a few city council people here and there. I've been on the school board the last couple of years, so I've gotten to know several of them that way, particularly the others on the east side, but other ones as well. To me, the big issue is public education. That's the one I care the most about as a member of the school board, and as a parent, for that matter, and a taxpayer. But also ethical government. And it isn't enough for the individuals to be ethical. I can claim that I'm an honest guy, and other people can say, yeah, Mark's an honest guy. But I think Kevin Jackson was an honest guy, and I think Luis Aponte was an honest guy. to me, it's kind of a system issue, right? I mean, there need to be changes, there need to be reforms in how we finance elections, the power of the Providence Ethics Commission, all those kinds of things, so that good people don't find themselves tempted to do bad things. I mean, maybe that's a simple way to put it. But
so do you think right now there's a need, especially for Providence as a whole? I mean, two very high-profile cases, again, kind of maybe for restoring faith in the council.
I think so. I mean, I think actually the actions of the last week or so, I'd like to think are restoring faith in the council. I mean, that the system, however flawed it is, seems to be working in a certain kind of way, right? I mean, because we've got these two very powerful council people, longstanding members of the council who've done a lot of good, but have also, it would appear, at least, have violated campaign finance laws. And now one of them is off the council and the other is out of a leadership position. And when you combine that with the term limits, there's a chance for some serious turnover on the council, which I think will be a turnover in a progressive direction as well as an honest direction, more representative of the people who live here.
Any conversations with Mayor Lorza, anyone on his staff? What's your take on how Mayor Lorza has done in office so far?
I voted for him in 2014, and it was actually his election that kind of got me thinking I should try and get on the school board in the first place. I know him a bit. I like him. He's a good man. He's very smart. He's doing the best that he can. I'm a supporter of Dolores. I'm obviously I have to see who else runs in the next election. But I've been particularly impressed because the way in which I've interacted with him the most is on public schools. He appointed me to the school board. And before he decided whether to appoint me or not, he brought me into City Hall in his office and sat with me for like an hour. I don't know how many mayors spend an hour, in the first month of their administration talking to each individual potential school board member. So he has a passion for public education, and I think he's become even more informed about it as time has gone by. And also trying to put some more money into the school district in this most recent budget, which I think is great.
Was that sort of, as you see it, maybe the biggest piece in terms of, an ask, what are the biggest issues facing public education in the city? Is it really just so much of it a funding standpoint?
Well, it's about to be, because we got this extra money from the city in the budget this time, and a little bit of the funding formula money from the state, but all of that is probably not going to be there in the years that come.
Yes.
And if the Trump budget the Trump budget that we've seen is not the one that's going to pass, but there's going to be severe cuts in the Title I, Title II, and Title III funds. So the school district's going to find itself in serious deficit. And the first school board meeting I went to, we voted on the budget. I was a brand new school board member. I hadn't seen much of any of it other than just like one spreadsheet. And but it seemed very clear to me that all the adults in the room knew we had to pass it, but every adult in the room knew that budget was inadequate to educate the children that we have in an equitable and effective way. But the resources just aren't there. And as I've been on the board longer, the thing that I've been really struck by is the condition of the school buildings in the city. And that, in terms of policy, that's really the thing that also kind of nudged me towards running for city council, because the city owns the school buildings, which means we collectively have the responsibility to put our teachers and our kids in buildings that are safe and healthy, that enable them to learn and to work. And so I want to be a voice for trying to bring more funding to bear on the school buildings, not just within the city, but changing the way we finance these things at the state level too.
And were you following the maybe controversy with the Community Safety Act at the city council level? What's your thought on that? Very contentious. It's been kind of overshadowed with what's been happening with the actual membership turnover. Right. But one of the kind of preeminent issues facing the council right now. What's your thoughts on that? As passed the first vote, they sort of tabled it. Are they going to revisit it? And what's your thought if you were a council member?
Well, I would vote for it if it comes before me in some fashion, and I'm on the city council. I will for sure vote for it. My scholarship and my teaching are about the history of cities, and in particular about the origins of racial inequality in American cities, and essentially how our cities got to be as segregated and unequal as they are in terms of housing, schooling, and criminal justice. So the issues that inform the Community Safety Act are things that I've been passionate about for a long, long time and taught my students about for a long, long time. So when I first became aware of the community effort to try and get this passed, I helped to organize a group of citizens on the east side to try and pressure their city council people to support the CSA. Kevin Jackson was already supportive of it, but Sam Zurier and Seth Yurden were not. And at that point, I made a very kind of public speech in favor of the CSA as it stood at that point. And of course, it's changed a little bit subsequently. But I think it's a really important statement for the city to make about people of color in our neighborhoods, and particularly young people of color. I don't think there is anything, I don't see it as an anti-police bill. To me, it's about accountability. I think any profession, whether it's yours or mine or any other, doctors, dentists, whomever, every profession has some measure of accountability, which I think will make community policing more effective in the end. The law, if it passes, is also set up to help create data for us to see what interactions are like between police and people of color and immigrants in our neighborhoods. So to me, I don't know I don't know what's going to come out of that working group. I get the sense that the text of the bill is not going to change that much. I don't have a sense of whether it will pass before I or someone else would get into the Ward 3 seat. But if it hasn't passed by then, I will introduce it or try to get it to pass. And I would also try and fight to make sure it's resourced. And then if we have to change it, as it unfolds, if it turns out it hampers the police too much or doesn't do the job it's supposed to do, we change it.
So here we are. It's Tuesday, May 23rd. The primary is in July. Are you just going to be walking the neighborhood between here and July?
That's pretty much it. I mean, it's, I've enjoyed doing it so far. I didn't think that I would. I'm a college professor, so I'm used to talking to groups of people, but otherwise I tend to find other people a little exhausting sometimes. But it's actually been really inspiring. Just walking the neighborhood, good exercise too. But and I'm going to take my kids with me when I go do it. But people are very hopeful, I think. I met just this last weekend, I met someone who's lived in Ward 3 for 59 years, and she was telling me, how her kids, went through some public school buildings that don't even exist anymore. Her son just graduated from the Coast Guard Academy. She's a nurse. She loves living in the neighborhood, has been there since she was 18 years old. And then I met another family that had just moved in a week before. It's a great place to live. I love living there. We're not going anywhere. My kids will go on and out someplace, but my wife and I are staying.
You're going to stick with the roots there.
Yeah, and I don't have any aspirations to do anything other than this politically. So, I'm a teacher. That's what I do. But I feel like the things that I've learned over the last couple of decades of teaching urban studies and studying urban policy, that I have something useful to contribute, so I figured I'd try.
Okay, well, I'm glad we had you in today because all eyes are going to be on Ward 3 looking at July and then August, so I'm sure we'll talk between here and there, but I'm glad you were able to come in, maybe tell folks, got to let them know a little bit more about you and your candidacy. Did anything we didn't hit?
No, I don't think so. I think that's it. My website's marksantow.com.
Put you through your paces. Well, I appreciate your coming in. As I said, I'm sure we'll talk soon. So, Mark Santow, thank you for coming in today. I appreciate it. I'll let you go around the corner here.